Coming up on this week's Silver Arrow Show, I find out just how the team plans to put an F1 car back together again. In fact, make that 2 F1 cars. We get your reaction to that first lap incident between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. And we remember the awesome Mercedes win at the 1936 Monaco Grand Prix. The lap 1 collision between Lewis and Nico saw both drivers retire from the Spanish Grand Prix, ending up in the gravel trap at turn 4. After looking at all of the evidence and speaking with the drivers, the stewards determined it was a racing incident, that Nico had the right to make the manoeuvre and Lewis's attempt to overtake was reasonable. It was ruled that neither driver was wholly or predominantly at fault, therefore no further action would be taken. That was how the team saw it too, but what did you make of what happened? I caught up with some of you as you left the circuit after the race.
We were slightly disappointed to see Mercedes go out before we'd even, on the very first corner, on the first lap.
You only saw it on the telly, but as soon as they went out, it was just heart-wrenching.
We came supporting Lewis, I suppose, more than everybody else, but unfortunately we didn't get to see him run or win.
Our cameras were ready, our phones were ready, and
Yeah, the race was good. Verstappen done well.
We were kind of disappointed that Hamilton was out in the beginning.
Very good race, but I'm just a bit disappointed that Lewis Hamilton got knocked out on the first corner.
It's unfortunate and disappointing.
Disappointing.
Devastating.
It was a shame.
Disappointing.
Frustrating, very frustrating.
Any thoughts at this stage as who's to blame?
Hard to say, but I mean, personally, I would think Rosberg.
I think Lewis.
I think Rosberg might have been slightly at error.
I'd have thought it was Lewis's fault by the look of it. But
And you're wearing a Lewis hat.
yeah, I know.
Nico pushed him across, so forced him onto the grass, and that's what led him to do the spin.
I would probably say it was Lewis as well.
I'm sure might be a few fisticuffs later on with the two of them.
Sunday's race means the team's going to be working even harder in the run-up to Monaco this year. Let's talk to the Chief Operating Officer from the team, Rob Thomas. Rob, how do you begin to put 2 cars back together in such limited time?
Well, fortunately, these sort of incidents are very, very rare for us. But when they do happen, we have quite a good process in place to deal with that. So, as with all of us, when that initial impact, we have our head in our hands for probably about 10 seconds, and then we all think, okay, what next? So the process really, as it sort of happens, we're hungry for information. So immediately we'll be contacting ourselves within the factory to say, you've all seen it, what are we going to do? And emails will go out almost immediately. The first thing we sent out was really to the composite department, where we're standing today, was to pretty much say, next weekend, we're all in.
So basically write off all your holiday plans, you're going to be in?
Pretty much, because we can see from the impact that it's going to be a lot of damage and it's going to come back to us. That's the first thing we do. When the cars then are back into the garage at the circuit, a lot of analysis goes on then, and lots of phone calls and photographs come back to us. And what we get from the circuit is a quarantine list. Because our first priority is to make sure the car is going to be safe. This quarantine list lists all the parts that are, if you like, suspect. On that list this time, there was over 1,000 parts. There was 1,200 parts listed that came back to us. So immediately,
1,000 parts damaged on both cars?
Well, damaged, quarantined, needs some sort of work. So then the cars travel back. At the moment, the cars are in strip, down in build, and they're carefully being taken apart. And what happens then, all the parts are, if you like, blown throughout the factory. So a lot of the assemblies, for wings for example, will go into the testing department, and they're in there now just being tested as a full assembly to see really, do they still have structural integrity. Lots of other parts then go into non-destructive testing, so they'll go in there and be checked again for any cracks within the components, or they'll go into inspection, where we'll dimensionally check it.
If there aren't any cracks and if they're still structurally strong, can you use those parts and adapt them and add bits?
Yeah, if they're not cracked and they're still dimensionally okay, then in fact they're fine. What you actually find is lots of them got bits off them, there is lots of damage. For example, the floors are very, very damaged, they've come back. So they're now being taken off and the composite guys are looking at them saying, can we repair them? And that's a huge question for us. So 1,000 parts will get looked at in about 24 hours. That will then tell us our workload. And from that point, it's either we go out to our suppliers and say we need parts very quickly, or in-house in these departments, we get fully on it. So the planning and organisation is a huge challenge for us. And that's really where the team excels. The team working between all the departments is sort of seamless. And the communication is real time. We have two structured meetings a day we've put in place to try and coordinate it. The reality though, it's happening all the time. Lots of conversations happening to try and pull us together. And of course we're going to Monaco. Monaco we test on a Thursday, So we've got 1 day less than normal. So we're going to start building the cars this Friday. So we've got 3 days, effectively 3 days now, to pull this all together to be able to put together 2 cars to go to Monaco.
It sounds like a huge job. I don't think I'd want to be in your shoes. I hope you can get the cars back together. Your feeling at the moment is definitely doable?
Yeah, it's always doable. It's all about compromise and making quick decisions. You know, the number one priority is to make sure the car's safe, as we say. So we take care of what we call the Class A parts. Things like the suspension, those parts have to be correct. So we put a priority onto them. After that, we look at the performance parts. And of course, we know we've got a pretty competitive car. So everybody's massively motivated to make sure we get these performance parts together and we go in the best possible condition for the circuit.
Right, well make sure you get enough sleep over the next few days and we'll see you in Monaco.
Thank you.
So we've heard from Rob about the amount of work needed to be done before Monaco. He mentioned 1,000 parts, and that's where Head of Build Peter Hodgkinson comes in. Hodgie, can you talk us through the parts that you think need the most work?
I think the front suspension on Lewis's car might need a bit of looking at.
Is that a completely start again procedure?
Oh yes, very much so. So our composite department's going to be under a lot of pressure over the next week manufacturing some new suspension for us.
And that's a lot of carbon fibre. Talk us through the amount of time needed to generate and to produce the carbon fibre.
It's going to take a couple of weeks, so we're going to be pulling all our spares in, obviously, to build the cars, and then restocking the spares throughout the Monaco weekend as the parts become available.
And as soon as the parts are ready, they'll be going onto the cars, and we can hear and see the parts being fitted back on. Is that how it works?
Yes, we'll strip today, and then hopefully by Friday we'll be reassembling and having the cars out the door on Monday morning for Monaco.
Now, you mentioned Lewis's front suspension. I can see behind me here a piece of the side pod. So this is from Nico's car?
Yes, this is from Nico's. Obviously, I don't think this is repairable.
I'd say be careful, but I think it's a little late.
Yeah, I think it's a bit late to be careful with this.
I think the horse is already bolted. So I can see the honeycomb structure here very much exposed.
Yes, definitely. You can see many layers of different materials in here. So obviously, we'll be remanufacturing these for Monaco. These are a little bit quicker than suspension.
Do you have side pods ready to go? Do you have stock?
We do.
So that helps the turnaround
Absolutely.
process.
We'll just be replenishing our spares over the next few days.
So this will be ready, when do you think?
I think for Monaco.
Okay, well that's good news, that's what we want to hear.
Yep, replace the Monaco.
So we wish you lots of luck to get these 1,000 parts back ready for Monaco.
Thank you very much.
Now, after the events of last Sunday, we obviously don't have a podium story to share with you, so we've done some digging in the archives instead. In the 1950s, the Silver Arrows never managed to win a race in Monaco. But 80 years ago came one of the most famous wins of all, when the Regenmeister, that's Rainmaster to you and me, Rudolf Caracciola took a famous victory on the wet streets. 3 years earlier, he'd crashed his car at the Tabac corner and had been seriously injured. In fact, his right leg healed some 5 centimetres shorter than his left as he recovered from the injuries. He had retired from the previous year's Grand Prix, but when Easter Monday, the 13th of April, dawned wet 80 years ago, the smart money was on the famous wet weather specialist. He diced with Nuvolari for the lead and, most importantly, avoided the lap 2 crash at the chicane that took out his teammates Chiron and von Brauchitsch after they skidded on a backmarker's oil. At the end of the 100-lap race distance, only Caracciola and second-place Varzi were on the lead lap, with the Mercedes nearly 2 minutes ahead of the Auto Union. Unfortunately, the Mercedes archive doesn't hold any original cinema footage of the 1936 race, but we did find this for you to feast your eyes on from the golden age of the 1930s. That brings us to the end of this week's show. As I'm sure you're aware, the next race on the calendar is Monaco, and we all know that's a quiet one.